This is a full-length video for the fashion house Versace. This is everything you want to know in 1 hour. Now let's sit back and enjoy the ride.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
You are greatly appreciated. Chapter 1. Boy Before the Brand. Gianni Versace was born in 1946 in Reggio Calabria, a small town in southern Italy, far from the fashion capitals that would later worship his name. This was not a place of runways or luxury houses. It was quiet, coastal, and steeped in history. The kind of place where the past lingers in the architecture and the air feels older than the people living in it. Gianni's earliest education in fashion didn't come from books or schools. It came from his mother. His mother, Francesca Versace, owned a tailoring shop. From a young age, Gianni spent hours there watching garments come to life from flat fabric. He learned how clothes were structured, how they moved on the body, and how precision mattered. This wasn't fashion as fantasy, it was fashion as craft. While other children played outside, Gianni observed. He absorbed. He learned how beauty was constructed quietly, patiently, by hand. This environment shaped him deeply. Tailoring taught him discipline, but Calabria itself gave him something else, a fascination with history and drama. The region was surrounded by remnants of ancient Greek and Roman civilization. Ruins, statues, and mythology were not abstract concepts here. They were physical, visible, and unavoidable. This early exposure would later become central to his work. Gianni was particularly drawn to classical imagery, figures carved in stone, symbols of power, beauty, and danger. These images stayed with him long before he knew how they would resurface. Even as a young man, Gianni had a reputation for being different. He was deeply artistic, intensely focused, and unusually confident in his taste. He didn't see fashion as something meant to blend in. He saw it as something meant to be noticed. Importantly, Gianni was never interested in subtlety. That instinct, the desire to be bold, expressive, and unapologetic, did not come from rebellion. It came from certainty. He knew what he liked, and he trusted it. Before Milan, before the runways, before the Medusa, there was simply a boy in southern Italy learning how fabric, history, and beauty could be combined into something powerful. And although the world didn't know it yet, Gianni Versace was already becoming Gianni Versace. By the early 1970s, Gianni Versace understood one thing clearly. If he wanted to be taken seriously, he had to leave Calabria. Talent could grow anywhere, but recognition lived in Milan. Milan at the time was the center of Italian fashion, disciplined, elegant, and controlled. Designers valued restraint, neutral colors, clean lines. Subtlety was the rule. Gianni did not fit that rule. After moving to Milan, he began working as a freelance designer, creating collections for established fashion houses. This period was crucial. It gave him technical confidence, industry connections, and a front-row seat to what Italian fashion valued and what it avoided. What it avoided was excess. Gianni saw this as an opportunity. Chapter 2. Milan, the birth of Versace. In 1978, he launched his first collection under his own name, Versace. From the beginning, it was clear this was not another minimalist Italian brand. His designs were vibrant, sensual, and unapologetically bold. Color was not an accent, it was the point. Prints were loud, silhouettes were sharp, the clothes demanded attention. The fashion world noticed immediately. While other designers focused on refinement, Versace focused on impact. His clothes were made to be seen from across a room. They celebrated the body rather than disguising it. There was confidence in his work, not arrogance, but certainty. This approach quickly set him apart from his peers. Versace wasn't rejecting Italian fashion traditions, he was challenging them. He believed luxury could be dramatic, that beauty could be powerful, that fashion could feel emotional, even theatrical. And people responded. By the early 1980s, Versace was no longer just a promising designer. He was a disruptor. His shows felt different. His collections sparked conversation. Some critics were uneasy with his boldness, but discomfort only made the brand more visible. Gianni understood something essential. Fashion was not just about clothing, it was about identity, desire, and spectacle. Milan gave him the platform, but Versace gave Milan something new. This was the beginning of a brand that refused to be quiet, and it was only the start. Chapter 3: The Supermodel Era and the Rise of Spectacle. By the mid-1980s, Gianni Versace had done something rare. He wasn't just designing clothes, he was shaping culture. Fashion, until this point, treated models as hangers. Beautiful, yes, but replaceable. Gianni disagreed. To him, models were not accessories to the clothes, they were the moment. Versace didn't just dress women, he celebrated them. His runways featured powerful silhouettes, strong shoulders, sharp tailoring, and unapologetic sensuality. The clothes demanded confidence, and the women wearing them delivered it. This is where the supermodel era was born. Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Claudia Schiffer. These weren't just faces, they were personalities. Versace understood charisma before the industry had a word for it. He let models walk with attitude, presence, and individuality. Runway shows became performances. Music got louder. Walks became bolder. The audience didn't just watch, they reacted. Versace shows felt closer to concerts than presentations, and that was intentional. Gianni believed fashion should be felt, not quietly observed. At the same time, he blurred the line between fashion and celebrity. Gianni didn't wait for stars to notice him, he invited them in. Singers, actors, royalty, and musicians weren't clients. They were collaborators. Fashion was no longer separate from pop culture. It was embedded in it. This approach was revolutionary. Versace turned visibility into power. If people were talking, good or bad, the brand was winning. Criticism didn't slow him down. It validated his instincts. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Versace was no longer just influential, he was unavoidable. Fashion had become louder, sexier, more theatrical, and Gianni Versace was at the center of it all. But beneath the glamour, there was a deeper philosophy forming, one rooted in mythology, power, and timeless symbols. And that brings us to the Medusa. Chapter 4: Medusa, Mythology, and the Versace Aesthetic. As Versace's influence grew, so did the need for a symbol, something timeless enough to carry the weight of the brand. Gianni found it not in fashion, but in mythology. The Medusa. In Greek mythology, Medusa was a figure of beauty and danger. To look at her was to lose yourself completely. Gianni chose her deliberately. He wanted people to feel the same way about his designs, captivated, unable to look away. The logo wasn't decorative, it was a warning. Versace's aesthetic was built on power, strength, control. His clothes didn't ask for permission, they demanded presence. This philosophy extended beyond prints and color into structure and silhouette. Leather, metal, chains, harnesses.
In the early 1990s,
Versace introduced collections inspired by bondage and fetish wear, not as shock value, but as symbolism. These designs spoke to dominance, confidence, and ownership of the body. They were controversial, but intentional. Gianni believed fashion should express desire, not suppress it. While other designers leaned into restraint, Versace leaned into excess. Baroque patterns, gold detailing, classical motifs mixed with modern sensuality. Ancient Greece met nightlife. Sculpture met skin. Critics were divided. Some called his work vulgar, others called it revolutionary. Gianni didn't respond. He understood that neutrality was the real failure. If people felt something, the work had succeeded. What made Versace unique was balance. For all its boldness, the craftsmanship remained precise. Beneath the drama was discipline, tailoring learned in childhood, executed at the highest level. This combination of mythology, sexuality, and control became unmistakable. You didn't need to see the label to know it was Versace. By the mid-1990s, the brand had become more than fashion. It was an attitude, a statement, a way of moving through the world. And soon, Gianni would take this vision somewhere new, somewhere louder, brighter, and more exposed. Miami.
Chapter 5.
Miami, Casa Casuarina, and Peak Versace. By the mid-1990s, Gianni Versace had reached a level few designers ever touch. The brand was global, the influence was undeniable, and Gianni increasingly was no longer interested in staying confined to Europe. He chose Miami. Miami offered something Milan couldn't: visibility, freedom, and spectacle. It was open, flamboyant, and unapologetic. In many ways, it mirrored Versace itself. On Ocean Drive, Gianni purchased a historic mansion and transformed it into Casa Casuarina. The renovation was extensive. Marble floors, gold mosaics, classical references woven into modern luxury. The home was not subtle. It wasn't meant to be. Casa Casuarina became both a residence and a symbol. Here, Gianni lived, surrounded by artists, musicians, royalty, and celebrities. Madonna, Elton John, Princess Diana. These weren't casual acquaintances, they were close friends. Versace didn't chase celebrity, he curated it. At this point, the brand expanded far beyond clothing. Versace became a lifestyle. Fragrances, accessories, home decor, furniture. Every product carried the same philosophy: boldness, beauty, and excess executed with precision. Runway shows grew larger. Campaigns became more cinematic. The line between fashion, art, and fame all but disappeared. Yet despite the glamour, Gianni himself remained surprisingly private. He was meticulous, controlled, deeply focused on his work. Public excess did not mean personal chaos. This was Versace at its peak. A brand that didn't whisper luxury, it announced it. But history rarely allows moments like this to last forever. And just as Versace reached its highest point, everything stopped.
Chapter 6.
The death of Gianni Versace. On the morning of July 15, 1997, Gianni Versace stepped outside his home on Ocean Drive in Miami. It was a routine moment, one he had lived hundreds of times before. Moments later, He was shot and killed on the steps of Casa Casuarina. He was 50 years old. The news spread instantly, not just through the fashion world, but across global media. Designers, artists, celebrities, and public figures reacted with shock. Versace was not only a creative leader, he was a cultural symbol. His death felt abrupt, unreal, and deeply destabilizing. For the fashion industry, it marked the sudden loss of one of its most defining voices. Gianni's murder was not connected to his work, his brand, or his public life in any meaningful way. It was a senseless act that ended a career still very much in motion. Projects unfinished, ideas unrealized, momentum cut short. In the days that followed, attention turned from glamour to grief. Runways paused, tributes appeared. Designers who had once competed with Versace spoke openly about his influence. Models he had helped elevate mourned not just a designer, but a mentor and friend. What made the loss especially profound was timing. Versace was not fading, he was not in decline. He was at his creative and cultural peak, still shaping fashion, still evolving, still pushing boundaries. His death forced the industry to confront something uncomfortable, that even icons are fragile. Casa Casuarina, once a symbol of excess and beauty, became a place of remembrance. The steps where he died were no longer just architectural detail. They became part of fashion history. Gianni Versace's life ended quietly, without spectacle. But the question remained: what happens to a brand built so completely around one person? That answer would come next.
Chapter 7.
Donatella Versace and the afterlife of a brand. After Gianni Versace's death, the future of the brand was uncertain. Versace had been built around one vision, one personality, one instinct. Without him, many assumed the house would quietly fade. It didn't. Leadership passed to Gianni's sister, Donatella Versace. For years, Donatella had worked closely alongside him. She understood the aesthetic, the philosophy, and the pressure that came with the name. But stepping into the role of creative director was different. This was no longer collaboration, it was responsibility. The scrutiny was immediate. Critics questioned whether Versace could exist without Gianni. Every collection was examined, every decision compared to the past. Donatella wasn't just designing clothes, she was defending a legacy. She chose not to erase her brother's vision, but to translate it. Under Donatella, Versace remained bold, glamorous, and unapologetic while adapting to a new era. The brand evolved with changing fashion cycles, celebrity culture, and global luxury markets, without abandoning its core identity. Importantly, Versace survived. In an industry where many houses disappear after the loss of their founder, Versace remained culturally relevant. The Medusa stayed visible. The aesthetic stayed recognizable. The attitude stayed intact. Today, Gianni Versace is remembered not only for what he created, but for what he changed. He transformed fashion into spectacle. He turned designers into celebrities. He made excess intentional. Versace proved that fashion could be emotional, theatrical, and powerful without apology. The brand continues, the legacy endures, and the world, still captivated, continues to look.